Dive into a 7-minute summary of the 2-hour Joe Rogan experience with Rick Caruso from February 5th, 2025. Discover Caruso's insights on LA's biggest challenges, from homelessness to water crises. Stick around for eye-opening solutions you won't want to miss. Here are the key takeaways from the podcast. Takeaway 1. Leadership and reform in LA. Caruso stresses the importance of leadership that isn't afraid to make unpopular decisions for the city's betterment. He contrasts his campaign's focus on actionable plans with the career politicians who prioritize staying in office over solving problems. He mentions his history working under mayors like Tom Bradley and Dick Riordan, where he learned that leadership not worried about re-election can truly serve the public. For example, he aimed to bring business efficiency to city management, recognizing that current political cycles often hinder real progress. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2. Homelessness crisis. The conversation digs into why LA's homelessness isn't reducing despite significant funding. Caruso points out bureaucratic inefficiencies, like officials in charge of homelessness initiatives who benefit from the status quo. He suggests redirecting funds to proven nonprofits, which operate at lower costs and higher success rates. For instance, he discusses how organizations like the Downtown Women's Center offer immediate housing and mental health services, leading to high rates of people getting back on their feet. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3. Housing affordability and regulations. Caruso criticizes the city's housing development strategy, where taxes like HHC have not produced the expected housing units efficiently. He explains how private sector involvement could cut costs dramatically, using the example of nonprofits building units at a quarter of what the city does. He advocates for fewer regulations and quicker, more transparent processes to encourage building, suggesting that the current system discourages development due to its complexity and cost. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. Public safety and law enforcement. They discuss how crime has increased due to policies that didn't prosecute minor crimes or release suspects too quickly. Caruso mentions the negative impact of George Gascon's policies, like the case of a repeat offender who committed violent acts post-release. His solution involves balancing accountability with rehabilitation, ensuring that the justice system works to protect citizens while providing a chance for offenders to reform, contrasting this with the previous revolving door approach to law enforcement. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5. Water management and infrastructure. Caruso talks about the mismanagement of water resources, like the flow into the ocean during droughts, and advocates for desalination plants despite environmental pushback. He uses the example of the fire disaster where water supply failed, highlighting the need for better infrastructure planning. He suggests that reservoirs should be kept full during fire season, regardless of ongoing maintenance issues. We're halfway through the video. Thank you for sticking with us this far. If you're enjoying it, please give us a thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below. To see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. Economic revitalization. He argues that California's high taxes and regulations drive businesses away. Caruso proposes tax incentives and regulatory reforms to make LA attractive for businesses again, using the example of how these factors have led to a notable business exodus from the state. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. Urban planning and recovery from fires. Post-fire recovery is a key topic where Caruso criticizes the slow rebuilding process and the opportunistic use of disaster for unrelated political agendas, like mandatory low-income housing in affluent areas. He suggests an incentive-based approach to rebuilding, like allowing developers to increase density if they include some affordable units, which could speed up recovery while addressing housing needs. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. Political change and citizen engagement. Caruso envisions a political shift where merit and effectiveness are valued over political loyalty. He is setting up a foundation to bring expert minds together to solve LA's problems, providing real solutions that politicians can implement, thus bypassing traditional political barriers. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Mental health and drug addiction. He identifies mental health and drug addiction as significant factors in homelessness, proposing stricter enforcement of drug laws alongside expanded treatment options. Caruso praises the work of groups like the Union Rescue Mission, which requires sobriety from residents but provides them with structure, training, and hope for recovery. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10, community and neighborhood impact. He worries about how neighborhood quality affects residents, especially children. He uses the example of Para Los Niños, a school in a rough part of LA, where the immediate outside environment is one of despair, yet inside, it's a place of opportunity. Caruso advocates for community cleanup and revitalization to provide children with a positive environment from an early age, which he sees as essential for breaking cycles of poverty and despair. Here is a brief introduction about Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso is a businessman, civic leader, and philanthropist. He is the owner and executive chairman of Caruso, one of the largest privately held real estate companies in the world, and founder of Steadfast LA, a nonprofit focused on private sector involvement in rebuilding wildfire-affected communities. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this summary of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast with Rick Caruso informative. If you're interested in learning more about these topics, I encourage you to watch the full podcast on YouTube. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. You can also discuss about this video by commenting below. To get more such videos in your timeline, press the subscribe button below.